Just in terms of background, I was just asked about my accent. I'm from Welsh sheep farming stock and emigrant to Australia, Austenville Plateau, and cattle and apricots and peaches. So I've been around farms and the farming industry for all of my life. But I've been in this role in research with the University of Southern Queensland for a couple of years. And it was formed because John Wagner had a spare 200 million, and he said, I'll build an airport. And they said, oh my God, what are we going to get on the plane? People won't come all the way out to Toowoomba, which is the highest value product, so we better get food on there. And thereby starting a new focus of the university on the agribusiness side of the value chains. For those of you who are familiar with the university, we have a very strong agriculture and engineering background. So in taking on this role, I come from a broader systems environment, and I've also worked with several other industry sectors. And I wanted to understand, when I looked at the figures on Australian agriculture, as to why we weren't more successful at exporting products, why we were still a commodity-focused industry when for several years we'd had this huge opportunity, and there was a lot of talk going on about China and the Asian opportunity. And in doing this, I actually looked at the vegetable industry first up and was like, my God, where's the value add? This is really hard. You know, there's not a lot of money in lettuces to get flown all the way to Asia. So we went off on a divergence into meat for a while because the protein market is an easier one to do, and in doing that, we investigated several aspects. So in this talk, I'll background a little bit on the broader issues of value chains and supply chains, which I consider to be transporting goods and the logistics rather than adding money to them, although it obviously is a cost and can be a plus or a minus. And I'll touch briefly on Thailand, just an example, and I'll touch on the infrastructure and some of the decision support tools. But what I will mainly focus on is obviously vegetables and what are the issues with transporting vegetables and building trade in the vegetable market into Asia. And I'll conclude with some key steps that are worth considering if you're not necessarily starting out but looking at expanding your business, but it could be starting out. This talk will cross over and support the earlier conversations, and but it will also have some, it's a different twist because it really is focusing on getting that quality product to market. Because there's limited growth, we need to find other markets. If we could all expand our production to sell to Woolworths and Coles, Metcash and the other supermarkets, we would actually get a really good return, but they're swamped. We're only, unless we increase our imports of people into Australia and grow our country by 1 million, there's very little room for growth. So we have to look overseas to grow our markets. But this raises 4 issues. One is that currently our exports are commodities focused, and we have a lot of expertise in commodities in the agricultural sector. But our fresh products tend to be sold as a commodity on the whole. They go in a box, they'll go to an exporter and their destination unknown, or they might have a country tag with them. What we've been talking about this morning is a completely different system. It's about treating vegetables as a retail product, and that is not where we've traditionally focused our fresh food expertise. And the often said issue is that we've got high labour costs and high logistics costs in Australia, so we have to do things big to make it work. And we also have a problem with infrastructure in that our airports are in the middle of cities, and so to do the fresh market, which is air transport, but even the ports, all the cities are built around the ports. There's a lot of increasing traffic congestion to get the products through the cities to the ports. Hence, John Wagner's airport is a very good option for the inland route and other inland airports, because that is a reason that there are a lot of disruptions in the Australian food supply chain. But there's also disruptions in the Asian food supply chain. And I'll just briefly, I think we've covered some of this in the earlier talks, but I'll just say that the Asian market is very discerning, and they want premium products, and food safety, traceability, the origin of the food, and social media are probably the 4 key things that you can define as how they're going to ensure that they've got a quality product. But their road congestion and waste management is far bigger than our problems. So if we've got problems getting our products out of Australia, it's nothing to what happens when you get it into Asia. And this is where you start moving from being a commodity exporter into a branded product exporter. Because if you're selling a commodity, somebody in Australia buys that, or somebody in Asia, but when it leaves your farm gate and gets to the port, that's it. You've got your money, you're right. But when you're selling a branded product, if your farm name, Perfection Fresh or 100 other potential farms, is on that shelf in Thailand, China, wherever, then, and that product is rotting or soggy or sagging, then they're going to say, I'm not buying from Perfection Fresh or wherever again, because they didn't get their product here. So you cannot sell a branded product and not think about what it's like when it gets to the marketplace. To just do a little wrap on that section, selling premium products to global markets necessitates a deeper understanding of the logistics, production and destination systems, technology, and the employee expertise at the other end to reduce the disruptions and control the quality. And that is obviously not so pertinent if it's a frozen product. It can dry out for defrost, or if it's a dry product, it can sit there on a dock for a while. But when you've got a lettuce or a different type of vegetable, any sort of vegetable, I'll go into that in a minute, you really need to understand how long it takes. Okay, just a very quick example. This is, so we are still doing, and we have done country analytics of several countries in the ASEAN region, and China and Japan we've touched on as well. But looking at Thailand, it's got advanced logistics compared to Cambodia or Laos or some of the other countries in the region. Population's nearly 70 million. Very strong presence of Australian companies there. There's 300 companies already situated there, and a lot of Australian companies have strong interconnection there. This is going back to the collaboration conversation just before lunch, which I'll touch on again. And they have an 80-hectare undercover market, which all the produce comes into when it flies in or is shipped in, unless you've got a direct relationship with a retail outlet. And this is where the problem starts, because that market is fantastic, it's massive, it's got concrete and steel columns and roofs, but it's not air conditioned and it's not refrigerated. And so your product can arrive in Thailand and look fantastic. It can leave Toowoomba or any other interconnected airport hub. This is what we're looking at in Queensland, is building up the Toowoomba, Cairns, Canberra, down in Victoria, seeing how we can create an inland corridor of air freighted food coming out of Australia. But once it gets to Asia, we've still got problems. And so you need to think about this as, am I a commodity person? Am I going to be a grower and not become a branded person and leave it up to somebody else? Or am I going to become a packaged, branded product person? And if you do that, you've got 3 broad options that you can do. You can get an Asian food distributor, importer, or a retailer to sell to directly, or you can work with an agent in Australia but develop a direct relationship with them. I.e., you can set up a partnership and you can do co-investment, which can be, as was mentioned earlier, skin in the game, so you can get a joint investment to develop your products in Asia. And you can also develop a cooperative, which somebody over lunch was saying they've got 4 farms that are working together and have employed a exporter to develop their business. And you can do all of the above in one business. They're not mutually exclusive. But this is the departure from the commodity world. It's a broader business development angle. And once you've got there, this is why you need to be thinking about it, because that product that came into Thailand, if you just allow it to arrive in Thailand at Bangkok Airport or one of the seaports near Thailand, and it goes to that market, it can then be trucked in an open truck or in any sort of a vehicle. There's 25,000 movements in and out of the Thai market every day to anywhere across the ASEAN China peninsula, and it is. And there's no control over your product. So this is why you actually need to have a lot more control of your product as it's going through, and you cannot do all that from Australia, so you need feet on the ground in Asia to help manage this. And the sort of disruptions that you could be seeing, so let's go back, excuse me, going wrong here. Right, the sort of disruptions you'll see are also that you can get counterfeiting and adulteration of your products. So, for instance, and I'm not quite sure what they do to vegetables. It's probably a bit more difficult, but with meat, they'll pump it full of red dyes to make it look fresher. So if you're, for instance, selling chilled meat products, then they might take, well, there was, I think, 25-year-old frozen meats in one container that was discovered recently, but they'll take buffalo meat from India and sell it as Australian ribeye steak pumped up with red dyes. So you need, but with vegetables, I mean, the general thing is that China and Vietnam grow a lot of vegetables, but their soils are highly contaminated, so Australian vegetables get a premium, which we need to protect. But they might replace your broccoli with Chinese vegetable and sell it for the premium. But in a recent test of foods in a Vietnamese supermarket, over 60% of them had chemical levels beyond the acceptable consumption level. So that's the guarantee that we've talked about. The consumer wants the guarantee that it's Australian. And so if you don't know how your vegetable got from the market in Thailand or wherever it lands to the retail outlet, you don't know if it's actually your product being sold. So the other reason, and there's two issues that you can do to understand, well, there's 2 issues that we need to also consider, is that the trucks, if they're not temperature controlled, you've got a very small degree of tolerance in your crops. So for instance, you look at lettuce there, the 4th line down, it's got 12 to 14 days shelf life, but the optimal temperature for transportation is 0.6 centigrade. And so you need to, it needs, and it's going to be transported with a number of other vegetables. So what you need is a temperature truck that can accommodate all the different products going in. Now, most of the trucks I saw, have seen in Asia, have very little temperature control, and they're often driven by inexperienced drivers who don't understand the processes. So number one is you have to have a relationship with a logistics provider to help you to manage that assurance that you actually know how your product is being transported. And understands the needs of all the different products, because they all vary. Number two is packaging. There's a big difference between packaging something to go to a supermarket here and packaging something that's got to go through 3 or 4 different logistics providers till it gets to its end market. So you can reduce the impact of transportation by choosing the right packaging and by monitoring consignment loads until you're assured that there is a consistency of temperature. And it's not just temperature, it's the roughness of the roads and the handling of the product. So there's a number of ways that you need to be involved to ensure your product's got to market. And the reason you need to do this, and this is going back to Angeline's thing, is people really want a regular quality vegetable. If every 1 out of 5 consignments that arrives there has a soggy base or is rotting, then they won't buy it the next time. So you have to have consistency. But also because they want to know about you. Like that bottle of oil with the social media scanning code on it, that is actually the way that you build trust. You want them to see where it's grown, they want to scan it, they want to see how it got there, and they want to guarantee, even for a lettuce, that its source wasn't a Chinese contaminated field, but an Australian pure, well-regulated farm site. And they'll pay a premium. If you can guarantee that, there's a premium to make. So I would just like to say that it's all very doable, but it's impossible to do it all from a farm in Australia. So there needs to be a broader thinking about who you collaborate with and how the industry tackles the growth of the sector. Because if and this is just a broader observation, but if the industry is to grow, it's going to need more than 1 or 2 growers tackling it successfully, because the Chinese or the Asian market, they want vegetables year round. And so from Queensland through to Adelaide and up around the West Coast and into Northern Australia, we almost need to have production systems that are aligned, so that when avocados are in season in one part of the country and not in another, or whatever other vegetable it is, that we can assure these markets. Because the minute that we're out of season, somebody else in the world will leap on that spot. And so it is moving more into the FMCG space, where you guarantee to fill that shelf space year round, and that will take a more coordinated approach. And so there's huge opportunities to grow, but it requires a broader thinking, and not just in Australia, but managing the delivery of that product in Asia. Thank you.